The big trouble is that our non-medication based therapies, each and every one of them has failed. They haven't worked at all. It's not that they didn't work well, it's that they did not work at all. So a lot of the stuff that you got taught in school, please forget as quickly as you possibly can. The very first one to show this was the MTA, the Multimodal Treatment Study of Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder in children. It's called the MTA, the largest, longest study of a mental disorder in children ever done. And this was started back in 1998. So the kids in this study are now in their mid-30s, and they're going to be followed their entire lives. And what they divided them into 4 groups. One got just medication, one got maximum dose behavior management, 2 hours every afternoon for 9 months. The parents had 2 hours twice a week for 9 months. So even if it had worked, it would be too expensive to do. So what we found was that adding the maximum dose behavior management added precisely nothing to medication at all. Well, they couldn't quite believe that, and so they did the NYU McGill study. There, everybody was on medication. Rather than going just 9 months, they went 2 years, and they did 7 different treatments. And what they found was that there was no support for or advantage from adding any of it. They did not improve medication alone in the slightest, no detectable benefit. The theory that has dominated ADHD in the United States and is also the chief cause of the 20 years of paralysis is the executive function deficit theory. And it's basically, executive functions are all those things we use to solve problems and to manage ourselves, manage our emotions, manage our thoughts, solve problems, etc. Executive functions are pretty much anything you want it to be. The problem is, executive function deficit theory has not worked. In point of fact, there's never been a study that found that more than 25% of children, adolescents, or adults had a consistent executive function deficit. Therefore, executive function deficits are not sufficient for the diagnosis. They're not required for the diagnosis. And here's the kicker. They've never been able, in 30 years of trying, to develop a therapy that improved the functioning of people with ADHD in any detectable way. Virtually no interventions were effective. Neurofeedback, diet, nutrition, working memory training, cognitive behavioral therapy, all struck out. There was only one that worked, and that was exercise. There's about 12% of the population where you can treat ADHD as well as with medication with aerobic exercise. And it benefits just about everybody. So that's the one non-medication based therapy that has really robust benefits. So what we know now is that ADHD is not a deficit disorder. That is how it's been viewed for my entire lifetime, is that people with ADHD are actually neurotypical people who are damaged, and that the goal of therapy is to repair that damage. The thing is that they've looked at ADHD being a deficit of effort, character, willpower, you're not trying hard enough, brain activity, brain size, brain integrity, the structure around the child. Parenting, boy, parents got a heck of a beating on this one, and it's found that parent training made no difference at all. It's not a matter of intelligence. Indeed, most people with ADHD do find lots of compensations, but they also end up having to work twice as hard for half as much. It's not a matter of self-control. It has nothing to do with neurotransmitters in your brain, and of course, it has nothing to do with executive function. So the problem is that we've been asking the wrong question. Go to the person you know who has ADHD and ask them the following question. Look back over your entire life, all the way back as far as your memory goes. If you've been able to get engaged and stay engaged with literally any task of your life, have you ever found anything you couldn't do? It's an odd question. Nobody's ever asked them that before. Most people with ADHD will say, no, if I can get engaged, I can pretty much do anything. In fact, people with ADHD can hyper-focus. This is this altered state of consciousness in which people with ADHD and what they're doing become one. They have perfect engagement. The world just falls away and it's them and what they're doing. So you've probably seen kids with ADHD who are lost in their own world, and so it's mystifying to us. Sometimes they're the very best kid in your class, and the rest of the time they're in la-la land. But it's this swinging from one pole to the other. Does that match what you see in your ADHD kids? They are inconsistent in a very consistent way. And so this was the new realization. Why it took 50 years is beyond me, but this is the new realization that there are a set of circumstances in which children and adults with ADHD have no impairments. They do perfectly well, thank you. And for some reason, we ignored that fact. Go figure.